In this exercise you will see we will use several functions to draw up this profile. Please look at your drawing in your PDF file to follow this video. We will select this geometry and delete everything so we have an empty sheet. We will start with the first horizontal line. As you can see, the reference point lies at the bottom on the left. So we draw our first line from left to right. The y value is 0. In this case, the x2 is important, as from there we need to draw an angle, line angle. So this is 265. We can then move to line angle, which has an angle of 49 degrees. The length is unknown, but we can enter 40, for example. And we see our line angle. We can then reduce the view or move the center of the drawing. And we draw up our next line from left to right. And the y value is 40. We can then enter a value for our fillet, which is 37. OK. And if you take a close look at your drawing, we do not know where this line ends. If you look at the 575 dimension, this does not apply for this line, but a line a little bit higher. So we now need to figure out, as we cannot draw the fillet before we draw the line under an angle, we need to look a little bit further, and we will draw the last horizontal line first. So we reduce the view, we move to a line sketch from right to left, and the y is 0. Our start point will be 7, 6, 8, and x2 will be 610. OK. As we want to draw a line under an angle, we will deselect with the shift button this chain, otherwise you will get two lines under an angle when this is also selected. So we move to line angle, we enter a value of 131 degrees. Our length is not known, so we estimate 40 millimeters. And we can now use the control button and select this line, which means these are the last two elements. We can move to fillet and enter a value of 37. And now we resolved our problem over here. So click the left mouse button, so everything's being deselected. Move to the last element, press the shift button, and click the left mouse button. If you move on to line angle, we can define the next angle, line under an angle, which has an angle of 180 minus 122. The length of the line we will enter, for example, 200. So this gives us enough room to enter a fillet of 70. OK. We move on to the next line. And the y value is 210. We can fillet this with 37. OK. And if you take a close look at the drawing over here, you can see that the 575 applies to the end of this line, which we did not enter. But after this line you will see the radius of 30. And we know the center of this radius of 30 and the value, so we can move to our coordinates, click on reset. The x value is 575. The y value will be 210 plus 30 millimeters. Our radius is 30, and our start angle starts here up to here, and we selected clockwise arc. This gives you an example, which is okay in this case. You'll see the arc over there. We can trim, so this results into one chain. We can then define a line under an angle on the end of this arc, which is 90 degrees plus 45. The length is unknown, but we can, for example, enter 150. And there is our line. The next element is the R50, which we can only define if we know the R65. The center of this arc is known, so we can move to our coordinates, reset, and we enter X 430, Y 420. Our radius is 65. Our angle starts over here and ends over here. As you can see on the example, we need to alter the direction into counterclockwise, and we click on OK. As these are the last two elements, we can define a fillet of 50. OK. We now can define a line with an angle which is 180 plus 30. The length of the line unknown. We can, for example, enter 400 millimeters, and there's our line. Our next element is the fillet of 45, which we can draw when we can define the next line with the angle of 118 degrees. But you can see we cannot define this line before we know the R50 down left. So this means you cannot look further ahead than one element. So now we need to think about working to the end result from the other side. So if we move to special reverse, you will see that direction and order are being changed. So now this is my last element. And if we look at the R50, we know the center and the radius, so we move to our coordinates, reset, we enter an X value of 160, our Y value is 50, our radius is 50, it's clockwise arc which starts here and ends approximately over here. Okay, so we can trim this. We can move line angle. We enter an angle of 118 degrees, and the length of, for example, 400 is okay. And there's a line with a specified angle. As this is the last element now, and this is our first element, we can close the chain and move to fillet and enter a value of 45 and hit the OK button. And there's our profile. So very often you will see that to draw up a profile you will combine the line sketch, you will use the arc coordinates function, line the angle, and the fillet. So we can now move on to the next exercise.